Hello everyone and welcome back to part 3 of our Xacta IO learning series. In this video, we will be learning how to transfer our equipment or assets, operating systems, and/or software from Xacta IO, or using direct imports from Nessus scan files into our RMF project in Xacta 360 for our project inventories. There are multiple ways to do this, and you will need to choose the best method to suit the particular needs of your unique system. Each method can bring in all items, some items, or only update what you want. So knowing all this, let's take a look into how we can pull this data over.
In this scenario, we're going to be taking a project inside of Xacta 360 and we are going to import everything from our Xacta IO. That means that we're going to be pulling over not only our equipment inventory, but we're also going to create our software inventory and our operating systems inventory. This is going to create everything from scratch, and this is under the assumption that you have nothing. So in other words, we have nothing in any of our inventories. So in my Xacta project, we're just going to be reviewing here to show that I have no software in my inventory, I have no operating systems in my inventory, and I have no equipment in my inventory. And we're going to pull everything over from Xacta IO and allow it to create everything for us. In order to do this, we're going to choose the import function under equipment inventory. And instead of using the source as the equipment inventory template, we're going to choose to pull things from the Xacta IO server itself. As we pull things from the Xacta IO server, we're just going to allow it to do everything that we want it to do and create everything for us from scratch. So we're going to go ahead and click the import button, and you can see right here that this import has been scheduled and is ready to go. Now what we're going to wait for is for the notification to come in from Xacta 360 to let us know that the import is completed. So in order to see that, we're going to go to our inbox and we're going to wait and see what we have here. So we have an older message from an equipment import that happened earlier. So I'm just going to delete that message out because we're waiting for the new message to come in as of today. So I'm going to just refresh our screen every so often here in order to wait for that message to come in. Under normal circumstances on a production-based environment, this entire process can take anywhere between 3 to 10 minutes, depending on how much data it's trying to pull over. For vast amounts of data, it may take even longer than that. So when you're considering that if you have a system that may have hundreds of pieces of equipment and thousands of pieces of software, that process can take even longer. But here, I have my equipment has been imported in. I have 15 of 15 items that were successfully imported. So I do have a small subset of equipment here. I only have 15 equipment items. That's why it happens so quickly. But we're going to go ahead and go back to our inventories. So when we go back and we look at our software inventory, you'll notice that our software inventory is still blank. Our manage operating systems is still blank, and our equipment inventory is still blank. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, that didn't work. It did work, it's just there's a couple of extra steps that we have to do in our process. So what we're going to do is we're going to click the import button underneath our equipment inventory one more time. And what we see here is that all of our equipment is now in what's known as the staging area, or some people like to call this the bullpen. And when we look through the bullpen or staging area here, we notice that all the equipment has come in and has been assigned to groups. Now, if we did have equipment items that were not assigned to groups, we would need to make sure that they are assigned to the proper groups before we do the import over. Otherwise, it will not allow this import to happen. Now, I do have 2 pages of data, and it's only showing me 10 of them, 10 equipment items per page. I do have 15 items, so I want to show them all on one page. So I'm just going to go ahead and change that to 15. And now I have all 15 items on one page, and I'm just checking to make sure that they have all been assigned to a group. Now again, if they were not assigned to a group, I would need to go in here and assign them to my equipment group appropriately before we finish this out. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to select all of these items, which is going to put a check mark next to every one of our equipment items. And now that we have the check mark here, we're going to go ahead and select this Update Selected button. So we're going to click Update Selected now that we have everything check marked, and that's going to bring everything from this staging area or bullpen directly into our project. We notice that everything has now disappeared from the bullpen or staging area here. And now when we go here, we can see that our equipment items has been populated. And when we go back and we look at the operating systems, our operating systems has also been populated, and each operating system is already associated to equipment. So Xacta IO has already told us that there are equipment items that have the Windows 10 Enterprise on it. And if you click on the number 10, it will show you exactly which items are included in that. When we click on the software, it's going to have pulled over all of the software inventory for us for everything from Xacta IO. And it has already associated this to equipment as well. So we can immediately tell which software is installed on what equipment just by going through the list. We can see this, and we can click on a particular piece of software, such as this Microsoft filter pack here, and we can see that this has been assigned to these 3 assets and was found on those 3 assets according to our Nessus scans. So that is how you can pull over and initially create all 3 of these inventories: your software, your operating systems, and your equipment inventory. So this is the perfect scenario to use when you have absolutely nothing in your inventories and you want to create them from scratch. This is scenario number 2. In this scenario, what we're going to show you is how you can bring in and create an equipment inventory and an operating systems inventory, but no software inventory. So we're only going to create 2 things. We're just going to create this equipment inventory here and the operating systems inventory, but we're going to leave the software completely blank. Now the way that we do this is going to be a little bit different. Now, a lot of people always say, well, Xacta IO pulls over too much information. And as we saw inside of scenario number 1, it really does pull over too much information. And the most information that's going to be pulling over is from the actual managed software piece. So it's going to pull over, and it's probably going to create a software inventory that is not conducive to what you're trying to do. So in a scenario where you have absolutely nothing, in other words, we have no equipment inventory, so we have nothing in our equipment inventory, we have nothing in our operating systems inventory, and we have nothing in our software inventory. Let's say in this scenario, we only want to create equipment and operating systems. So what we're going to do is we're going to do something that's different. We are not going to import from Xacta IO, but we're going to use the same files that Xacta IO uses. Now, Xacta IO is using those Nessus scan files. that we get from the ACAS shops in order to create those equipment-based assets and also to create the operating systems and the software inventory for us. But one of the unique characteristics of Xacta 360 that a lot of people don't know is that you can also use those Nessus scans to create an equipment inventory and operating systems inventory. So what we're going to do here is we are going to import in to our equipment inventory, but now instead of using the template, which is a spreadsheet, or pulling in directly from Xacta IO, we're going to pull in from a Nessus scan. So we're going to pull in from these Nessus scans in order to create our inventory. And I'm just going to choose my Nessus file. And this particular Nessus file right here uh, has 5 assets in this one. So this particular file has 5 different assets in here. And we're going to go ahead and import that one in. And when we pull this one in, we'll see here that 5 of 5 have been successfully imported, and they all end up here in the staging area again. So in the staging area, I have these 5 assets, and I'm just going to go ahead and select them all. So all of them have been selected, and I'm going to verify that they've all been assigned to equipment groupings like they should. So we're just making sure that they are assigned to equipment groupings. We're going to go ahead and click Update Selected. Now, as soon as I do that, again, they remove from the bullpen or staging area here, and they appear now in my equipment inventory. So they're all here in my equipment inventory. And when I go to my operating systems, I can see that it did populate the operating system, and it did associate the equipment to the operating system. However, it did absolutely nothing for my managed software and left that completely blank. So I can create an equipment inventory, an operating systems inventory, and leave my software alone just by using the same Nessus files that we would put into Xacta IO. And I could continue to import more scans to create more assets. So I could create another asset here for this particular one. So this asset here is going to be a Windows 10 based asset. And when I bring this file in, it's going to create that one asset. So we'll select this one, we'll update it, and now we have an extra asset in here. And we can also see that the operating system, now it did pull in the operating system for this one asset, but again, has left my software inventory alone. So that's how we can use the same scan files that we're using inside of Xacta IO to create ourselves an inventory inside of Xacta 360. All right, in this video, we're going to be working with Xacta 360 and pulling in our inventory from Xacta IO into Xacta 360. Now we're doing this in order to update items about our inventory. However, there may be some items that we don't want it to update in our inventory. So in this situation, we're going to assume that our system is in continuous monitoring. So I'm in Xacta 360 and in the process task of information system and environment changes, which is continuous monitoring. My system has an ATO, and I already have done all the processes. So I already have my software list is built out from previously, and it already has all the equipment associations to it. I have operating systems already built in here for my different operating systems, and I already have an equipment inventory that's built out. But what I want Xacta IO to do is play a little bit of the fill in the blanks for me. In other words, if I have IP addresses that have changed or a revision to an operating system or something like that, or whatever it is that may have changed, minor changes, I want Xacta IO to be able to update those things for me. So in order to do that, I have to set up the way that my inventory works. Now, From the previous lessons, we know that we had 16 items in our Xacta IO system, and we do have 16 items in our Xacta IO, or Xacta 360 equipment inventory here. So they already match, so you can see I already have the assets 1 through 5, the 21 through 30, and the asset 111 down here. So everything already matches up. The host names match with what's already in there. And that's an important process of what we're about to do. So we're going to import, but instead of importing from a template, we're going to import from the Xacta IO server itself. Now, before I import from Xacta IO server, I'm going to want to set up how this is going to work. So I'm not just going to allow it to just import whatever it wants to. I'm going to tell it what I want to import and what I want it to work with and change. So I'm going to go right here to what's called the equipment match rules. And in the equipment match rules, you can see that we already have 4 of them. The first rule is going to be matching by host name, MAC address, and IP address. Well, I may not have all 3, and they all 3 may not match, so I'm not going to use that rule. I also have a rule for host name and MAC address. Now, while that is more plausible that I will find a match with host name and MAC address, I also am not sure if that's going to match properly or not. However, the one thing that I do know that will match is the host name, because I've already ensured that the host names that we have over here on the side match what I have inside of Xacta.io. So I've already made sure that that is correct before I even start this process. And I'm not going to match by just a MAC address because I'm not sure if that is correct either. So now that I have these set up to where I'm only matching by the host name, I'm going to save it. The next thing that we want to do, though, is we're going to set up what data can Xacta.io change, or what Xacta.io data can be updated. And we're going to do that by editing this rule. So I'm going to edit this rule, and I'm going to scroll down, and I see I have IP address. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the options. I could preserve it. In other words, leave the IP address alone. Whatever I have inside of Xacta 360 as the IP address, do not change it. However, I probably don't want to do that, because if my IP address has changed, I do want to get that updated from Xacta.io, because Xacta.io is most likely going to be more up to date with the IP addresses than what I have in 360. Same thing for the manufacturer, visual ID description, point of contacts, hardware details. Now, I do not want it to change the host name of the device, so that's why I have preserve in here. It is not going to change the host name of the device at all. And it is also not going to change the testable indicator for the device. Now, the other thing that is I'm going to allow it to change is the operating system. Okay, some of y'all might be like, well, I don't really want it to. You're probably going to want it to do this because the operating systems are not as really detrimental in this pulling over of things as other things may be. So bringing over the operating systems is not a bad thing, especially if we want to get the latest version of the operating system that we're on. So I'm going to allow it to replace it if it sees a different version of the operating system than what I'm using, right? So if it is provided to me, I will replace it. But for the applications, I'm going to preserve my application list. That's my software list. I don't want you to touch my software list. I don't want you to update it. I don't want you to do anything with my software list. Just leave it alone, right? Just leave it the way it is and let it be the way it is. The vulnerabilities, I will allow it to replace it if it sees vulnerabilities, and the function of the device, I will allow it to replace as well. So I'm going to save this now that I know that I'm preserving what I have for applications in here, along with the host name and the testable indicator. So now that we've got these equipment matching rules in place, we're going to go back over here to our general, and now we're ready to import from Xacta IO. So we're going to click this import button right here, and that is going to schedule that import to happen. Now that we've scheduled an import to happen, what we're going to do is go to our inbox, and we're going to wait for the notification to show up in here. Now, in the real world, this may take several minutes if you have a lot of data that's being transferred from Xacta IO into Xacta 360. But because this is a training environment, we don't have a lot of data. It's not going to take very long for this to come over. So I'm going to just click the refresh button here every few seconds. And that's just going to refresh my inbox because, like I said, I'm waiting for that message to appear. And it won't take long. For the training environment, it takes anywhere between 30 seconds to a minute for what we're doing. But again, we're just going to keep clicking this little refresh button, and eventually we will get that message of that our equipment items have been pulled over. And there it is. So here is our message. We have equipment that has been imported. 16 of 16 items were successfully imported in. So let's go back to our equipment inventory page and let's see what's going on here. So I have all of these assets in here. They've already been associated to operating systems, and we already have a software list. The last thing that we need to do in this process on our equipment inventory is to click the import button another time. And once we click the import button again, we're going to be presented with what's called the staging area. So this staging area is showing you all the assets that came in from Xacta IO and whether or not things were matched. So I can see that all of my equipment items did match, right? Equipment match, equipment match, equipment match. So things are matching to the host name. So it was able to find the host names for those devices. Now, because I'm across 2 pages, it's only showing me 10 records at a time. I'm just going to change this to 16 so we can see all 16 of them on one page. And we're just going to scroll through here a little bit and just make sure that everything is showing equipment match. That's what you're looking for. If we don't have things that equipment matched, then we absolutely would not want to bring them over with our stuff, okay? Because that will create a brand new asset, and we don't want to create a new asset. We want it to update our existing assets. So we've got all of this data in here. We know that it's all matched. Everything has been assigned to an equipment group. So we're going to select all, which is going to check mark all of those equipment items. And I'm going to click Update Selected. Now, once I click Update Selected, it's going to move from the staging area to my equipment. Now, some of the things that we're going to see that are different now is we can see that the vulnerabilities are now showing up. So we can see that some of our assets are vulnerable while some of our assets are green, right? So some are red, meaning we're failing some vulnerabilities in there, and some of them are green. But the operating systems, it did make an update if there was an update. So if there was an update to a version number, it would have made that update across here. But when we go to the software, you can notice that it did pull in software. Okay, so it did pull in software from there. And you're like, oh great, it just messed up my entire software inventory. What you need to understand here is that it didn't associate any of that to any equipment items. So none of this software that it brought in is associated to equipment items. I still have my software that is associated to equipment, but all this extra stuff that it pulled in that I don't want. Examples of that is like these CVE things that are here, different hot fixes for things, language packs can be in here, KB updates, a lot of stuff that I just really don't want to muddy up my managed software. So that was the reason why we set that up in the first place. Now, it's an easy way to fix this software list because it looks ugly again right now with all this stuff. But because we didn't associate it to equipment, this is a very easy fix. All we have to do is use the more and just say delete anything that's unassociated. And as soon as I do that, it removes all that extraneous software that it pulled in, and I'm left with my original software list that I did associate to my equipment items. So uh, again, it will still pull in the software, but very quickly I can remove all of that extraneous stuff that was already there. So now I have my updated equipment inventory, and these things will have, their latest IP addresses. So if we look at it, we can see there's the latest IP address for this item here. If it was able to determine what the MAC address, that would have been in there as well. Same thing for other assets we would see in here. We have an IP address. If it found a MAC address for it, it would put that in there as well. So, but all these different items were updated, but it left alone the installed software. So what I put in there for the installed software was left alone. The only thing that it did was update the things that I told it to update. So that's how we can bring over our equipment inventory, update things about our equipment inventory without messing things up.
For more great content, make sure that you like and subscribe to our channel to get the latest Xacta tidbits.